Welcome to another edition of AV Rant. I am Tom. I can't remember how to start this podcast. I'm Tom Andrew, Associate Editor of Audioholics, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AV Rant, the show where we answer your questions about all things home theater and audio video. We have a lot of questions and feedback to get to today, and there'll be news coming out on Thursday about DTSX, which I'm sure we will be speaking next week, so we might as well just get right to it.
Yes, but before that, this is the podcast where we answer your AV and home theater questions. The reason I messed up is because I always start the podcast with "and" or something like that, some sort of thing, and it's been bothering me. So I was like, "Oh, I didn't do it that time. What am I supposed to say next?" All right. So if you want your questions answered, all you have to do is ask. It's very, very easy. You can email us at rob@avrant.com, tom@avrant.com. Come to the website, which of course is www.avrant.com. You can post a comment there or on facebook.com/avrantpodcast. It's all one word. I wish I had brought a drink, Rob. That would have been a good idea.
It is good to wet your whistle.
Did not do that. I might have to take a break during one of your soliloquies to do that. Let's see. Twitter @FirstReflect is Rob, and @AVRant_Tom is me. We have to thank our listeners. The week listeners week come from us for people that do something in some way to support the podcast. A lot of times they'll do that by going to the website and clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee button and leaving a PayPal donation. And that donation goes into our coffers to help pay for I guess theoretically could actually buy coffee, though it never has. It's mostly pays for domain and hosting and streaming and bandwidth and all that nonsense. So if you would like to do that, it's always greatly appreciated. If you can think of some other way to support the podcast, like I've been meaning to say this for a long time, I keep forgetting. So one of our listeners of the week this week is going to be Leaf. Leaf is, I don't even know if he still listens to the podcast. It's been years. But when I was in Australia, Leaf was a listener who, when I left, he emailed me, says, dude, if you ever need anything shipped to Australia, just ship it to me. I'll ship it to you. He had kind of a workaround at work or something like that. I don't remember exactly how he worked out, but it wasn't costing him that much to ship stuff, and he wanted to do it. And it was great. I mean, I think I used it maybe 2 or 3 times. But it was like for Christmas, I would have Amazon ship everything to him, and then he would ship it to me. And it cost me a lot less money that way. So that was a really big help. So, Leaf, you are one of our listeners of the week. Belated. Leaf also recently lost like over 50 pounds. I've noticed that on Facebook he's been talking about it. So congratulations on that as well, Leaf, because I did the same thing and I know how good that feels. Gary sent us a donation. Let's see, who else? Oh, and Alan also sent us a donation.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Alan. Much appreciated.
Right. Alan and he and his family are enjoying watching Blu-rays on the refurbished Epson 5030 projector and Andrew Jones' Pioneer Tower speakers that he purchased thanks to our recommendations. John S. suggested that we do a T-shirt fundraiser, perhaps using the Teespring like the HG guys did recently for their 10th anniversary. Yeah, somebody said something about our 10th anniversary. I don't think we're on 10 yet. I think we're like 8. I think May.
Well, you're 8. I'm like
my 8th. I think we start in 20. It's 2007. So yeah, we should be 8, and that'll be in May, sometime in May. So yes, we could do something like that. We would need a listener who would want to be listener of the week by providing us with some artwork. That would be fantastic because that's the only way that's going to happen.
Coffee mug on there. John thought the coffee mug would. He'd buy the coffee mug apparently.
I made the coffee mug. I am extremely proud of the coffee mug. It took me like hours. I used a little smear tool inside the actual, like I stole the coffee from some image and then used the smear tool to make the. I thought that was pretty good. Anyways, and we also have Russell who got himself a pair of SVS PC 2000 cylinder subs and let SVS know it was because of AV Rant. So thank you, Russell, for letting SVS know that. John, thanks for the suggestion. We'll work on it. And Gary and Alan, thanks for the donations.
Thank you very much, everyone. Very much appreciated.
Now, I am mostly better this week, but I'm still using the crappy headset. Not the crappy. Only compared to the other mic. This mic is not as good. But I'm using it because I can mute it very easily, and I still cough occasionally. So, are you still sick?
I'm still all stuffed up, so if my voice sounds odd, that's what's going on. There goes the cough button right there.
Yeah, I just coughed just then. I was like,
timing.
I really need to go get some water. This is a mistake on my part. All right, so there is a news item. It looks like Parts Express has introduced economy international shipping, showing the complete landed on your doorstep price. So you can go to partsexpress.com/international shipping to find out more information about
Yeah,
that.
I tried just some like example things, and it is a little bit cheaper than it used to be coming to Canada, and it does include all the duties and taxes, so in fact it probably is significantly cheaper, but it's still kind of expensive from them to be honest for some things. But
Whose
this
fault
is
is that, though?
I know,
Really,
I know.
you can't blame Parts Express for the fact that Australia was the same way. They
Yeah.
just charge you for everything. We had people. I had a friend of mine who ordered a bike from England, and even with the shipping, it's like he said the bike, whatever he had in there, he didn't tell him what the actual price of it was. But I think it was like a $5,000 bike. He said, and it
Mm.
was still cheaper to buy it there and ship it over than it was to buy it locally because of
Yeah.
all the taxes and stuff
No,
like that.
I'm happy to see this from Parts Express because they often have products that are very useful and would be all over the world. So anything they can do to make it easier for people outside of the USA to get their products at a reasonable price, I
Seems like
am
they should be able to just
all
ship it
for it.
straight from China to you, because you notice where they're getting all that stuff. Never. All right, so we have a lot of questions left over for last week.
Hmm.
Hopefully, we'll get through them all. Just so you guys know, I have a day job, and that day job has Tuesdays and Wednesdays every once in a while, or I have to get up extremely early.
Yeah,
And tomorrow and so because I'm sorry, Wednesday and Thursday. Tomorrow is the last time I will have to do that for the rest of this until the school year next year.
cool, cool.
Then we'll see if I have to do it again. We'll see what my schedule looks like. But that means that's another reason why I'm so discombobulated today, because I've got so much stuff going on tomorrow and the next day. Now, Ashley, over on Facebook, would like us to list some inexpensive soundproofing methods and products. Does he mean soundproofing or sound
He
absorbing?
means soundproofing.
He's got an apartment or something like that, and he's worried about.
I'm not sure if it's an apartment, but yeah, the next sentence
He's
explains what he's
looking to
trying to
stop
do.
sounds from getting outside of his theater, or I'm sorry, stop sounds from outside his theater getting in, and also looking to stop sounds from inside his theater getting out. Your number one thing to do that with is, well, at least if for the sounds to get out, is not turn it too loud. There's just no stopping that bass once it gets going. But decoupling especially your subwoofer from the ground,
Hmm.
meaning putting on some sort of pad, the subdudes, or getting the special feet from SVS or whatever that decouple it, meaning that when the thing shakes back and forth, it doesn't send those vibrations through the feet into the ground. There's something soft that absorbs it that will help keep the sound inside the theater more so than it getting out. Um,
Hmm.
that's the number one thing that you're going to do. The high frequency stuff and the mid range stuff is a little bit easier to deal with. You can put some, I mean, you can actually just adding absorption to your room will help with that, or insulation in the walls if you have that option. If he's in I feel like he's in an apartment. I don't know why I
Well,
feel that.
and say inexpensive. It's never inexpensive to open up your walls. I
No,
mean,
it's
even if
not.
you're doing the blown-in thing, it's still a pretty decent cost to do that anytime you're patching up holes in your drywall.
And honestly, I'm finding because I had them put extra insulation. Like I filled
Hmm.
when we built this wall in here, I filled that wall with as much insulation as possible, which has really stopped sound from getting out as much. But once you get the projector on and the subwoofers go and everything else, and you get like 8 people in here watching the movie, this room heats up freaking quick,
Mm.
and it stays hot because there's so much insulation in the walls. So my parents have one, like it's like a portable AC. It's like probably three
Mhm.
feet tall or whatever.
One of the ones that you can roll around.
Yeah, it's like 85, but it's gonna be loud. And
Hmm.
I really, they were like, oh, we don't have any use for it anymore. What do you guys, you want it for your home theater? I'm like, no, I guess yes, probably. So I've got it sitting in the box right next to me, kind of making me angry just looking at it. But I'm gonna figure out some way to kind of integrate it into here so that I can use it and get some use out of it,
Hmm.
and cool down my room a little bit. So
Yeah, so
that's going off
for
topic. Sorry.
for Ashley, I'm going to suggest he goes over to a website called soundproofingcompany.com. The name is what it suggests. Not so much to look at their higher end, how to build a room within a room or how to add a second layer of drywall with green glue in between it, because those things don't fall under what I would call inexpensive. But they do have a ton of articles just on soundproofing in general that will be of good use to you. And in particular, one of their first articles they just call, four keys to soundproofing. Tom already mentioned one of them, which is decoupling. So anytime you can take a sound source and somehow physically isolate it from any structure of your, that is a big plus. That's decoupling. The other ones are adding mass, which is almost never cheap because that's drywall or mass-loaded vinyl or some big thick rubber pad or something like that. So all of those things are construction and expensive. But the other ones are absorption, like Tom also mentioned, or damping. And damping is using something like green glue if you're talking about the actual construction of your walls. But there's the big one, which might fall under what we would call inexpensive, which is flanking pathways for sound, which is basically think of your room like filling it with water and looking for any leaks.
I was going to
Because that's,
suggest that, like putting something underneath your door or whatever, one of those
yep,
door stop things to help
yep.
sound from leaking out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's anywhere that air can squeeze its way out, just like water would if you filled your whole room with water. That is called flanking noise, because even if you built thick walls that had double layer drywall and damping with green glue in between, and decoupling with like wall clips that separated the drywall from the beams or from the joists in your ceiling, all if you did all of that, but you still had a hole in the wall or a hole under your door, then sound just completely bypassed everything you just did and went through that hole. So that's the number one thing you can do inexpensively, is block everywhere that the sound can leak out, which is around your doorways, around your windows, and also things like your electrical outlets. They have things they sell called putty pads, where you can just open up your electrical outlets and stuff putty in there so that sound can't leak through the little gaps.
I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah, the panel of your electrical outlet. Of course, your heating, ventilation, air conditioning system is a big way that sound can get in or out of your theater, and that is a lot tougher to deal with. But one thing you can do, again, if you were to completely tackle this, that would be an expensive proposition, but you can get sprays, which are basically like kind of viscous, like very thick sprays that will deaden any vibrations inside of the vent itself. And you don't have to coat the whole thing. You can just coat sort of the entrance and the exit to the room. So that's something you can get at a hardware store, or you can go to Quiet Solutions. If you look up Quiet Solutions, they sell those types of sprays that are just, they're a form of damping. They're just a deadening thing. So like if you sprayed it on a cymbal and then you crash the cymbal, it would just go thunk instead of making a nice cymbal sound. So those would be the things I would look at to do inexpensively. Decouple your speakers and then block every type of air gap that you can find with putty or door jams or weatherproofing or anything like that.
Yeah, I guess you could get that if it's your house. You could get that spray foam stuff too. You could, spray it in there and then stick your it'd have to be a new work outlet. The ones that have the little dog ears or whatever, and stick it back in there. But I don't know that I would fill up that little box with spray foam. That's probably not up to code, I would imagine.
The putty's okay because it's actually reusable, so you can take it out of there afterwards, so it's not too bad.
Yeah, that sounds. Anyways, so yes, basically, yeah, you're looking to if that's what you're going to do, and understand that to do it to truly soundproof something, it costs oodles of money, oodles. But you can. Doing a couple of small, little, simple things that will make a big difference.
It can make a big difference just blocking the gap under your door if you have one.
Yeah. Well, listen, I need to do two, to be honest with you. Nate has two setups. He has a 2-channel setup in his living room with NHT towers and the Marantz SR8001 AV receiver and a Kenwood 9100 amplifier. Usually when I see 9100, I think it's 9 channels, 100 watts per channel, but I bet that's not what that is.
No, this is
it's a 2-channel, right?
Amp.
Yeah.
I think it's a 2-channel amp, yeah.
Yeah. He has a dedicated theater room with a 5.1 surround sound setup using Definitive Technology speakers and the Denon AVR 1312 AV receiver. Yay. He's not getting the performance he would like in his dedicated theater. The Denon 1312 seems underpowered. He cares very much about the sound quality in his dedicated theater, and his ideal goal is to have a 4K projector with or something with Atmos set up in that room, but the budget for a future-proof 4K plus Atmos AV receiver would need to be $1,000 or less.
Which means he's waiting.
I was just going to say, welcome to the wonderful world of hurry up and wait. So for right now, Nate is wondering, if his best option is simply swap the two AV receivers they already own. Some Rants has HDMI to 1.2, but no internal True HD or DTS HD decoding. So his main concern is being able to hear the best possible Blu-ray audio sound quality in a syndicated theater.
Not a problem, as long
It
as your
doesn't.
Blu-ray player can do the
Yeah.
decoding.
Yeah.
It sends out multi-channel PCM, which is
Which is.
exactly what it would have been decoded into anyway.
Yeah.
And HDMI 1.0 was already capable of taking 7.1 channels of PCM. So as long as your Blu-ray player can do the decoding, you're good to go. You could swap that SR8001. You could take the Kenwood amp that you already have. That would, I mean, if you can't get enough power for 5 definitive technology speakers using an SR8001 from Marantz and a separate 2-channel amplifier, then the problem is not your amplification. Then the problem is something else. So
Yeah.
even just as an experiment, because I'm a little surprised that even the 1312 isn't cutting it. I mean, not that that's a super high-end receiver, but like underpowered, that's odd. Just because
Is the DefTex that he's got? Did he say which ones they are? He just says he has DefTex speakers.
specifically, no.
Because I wonder if they're hard to drive or something like that. But even then, I would be shocked if it didn't.
Even then.
Unless it's like a massive room and he likes his volume levels stupid loud.
I mean, if he likes to listen at full reference volume, it might not be able to hit the full peaks. That is actually genuinely possible.
Yeah, but I'd be surprised. I have a feeling what we're hearing right now, what this is right now, is not the problem with the receiver. I have a feeling he doesn't like DefTex as much as he thinks he does. Or he's comparing them to his NHTs, and he likes his NHTs, and they sound different than the DefTex, and he's associating that with the DefTex, with the receiver for some reason being underpowered. I bet it's not that at all. I bet it's that the DefTex and the NHTs don't sound anything alike.
The other thing is, underpowered is very often the bass.
Right.
Because, I mean, if you can't drive the tweeters in the DefTex speakers with a 1312 to ear-splitting levels, then something has gone horribly awry.
They are not in the same house with you.
Yeah,
that
takes very little power to drive the tweeters, so it would be very odd if the treble that sounds underpowered is very often the bass, and a lot of DefTex speakers have those built-in subwoofers.
Right.
Some of them self-powered, many of them not, and they encourage you, because they have built-in subwoofers,
To run them full range.
To run them full range, and that could be an issue in many respects. First of all, the 1312 might genuinely be underpowered to run all the speakers full range. The other is, you got 5 speakers in non-optimal placements. You might be getting some nulls right in that like wonderful butter zone of 40 to 50 hertz, which is all the tactile bass that hits you in the chest.
Yeah.
If you happen to be getting a null because of running all the speakers full range right there, then everything will seem underpowered. So there could be more to this, is all we're saying, than just it being the 1312.
Feel free to swap the receivers out, and if you go, no, that kind of sounds the same, that'll tell you right there. Buddy.
Then you'll know. Yeah.
Then you'll know. But I bet it's the speakers. Lee, Overstreet. Oh, Lee. Send us a link to a story about 2 engineering students who built a device to put out fires with bass sound waves. So basically, it's like this little purse-looking thing that has electronics, or maybe backpack thing that has electronics, and then there's like a it's like a driver, it looks like, in a with a cone on it in a small hole. It's basically, well, it's building what we call a vortex generator, and that small hole, that the driver is compressing the air within that cylinder, and it's forcing the air out through the hole. The hole is round, when the air passes through, it comes out in the shape of a vortex, which is what you associate with a tornado.
Mm-hmm.
The tornado shape is very powerful. And yes, it was very cool. Like, they lit a fire and they put it out and all that stuff. But it's certainly not going to help you put out fires on houses. Not without knocking down the house.
No, they were saying, like, for the fire extinguisher you have in your kitchen for putting out a small fire on your stove. I mean, you wouldn't be having to spray foam all over the place.
That is true.
Too. It's just completely clean, because it's just sound waves. It's just moving the air. So I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's plenty of places where you keep a small fire. I mean, this is large.
I think SVS should be looking into it right now. It's like, hey, get your SVS fire extinguisher, and we'll give you $50 off for a sub. Oh yeah.
Well, They should have like a modifier, like it's a thing that you actually like house onto the outside of your existing subwoofer to turn it into a fire extinguisher.
It's like you attach it to the port.
Yep.
You
Just
take
all.
you take this big old, it's like a fire hose, it plugs into the port, and then you drag it to your kitchen, and you take it, honey, press the fire extinguisher button in the back of the thing. Blah, 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 blah. It's out. You can go ahead
Yeah.
and yes, and we
You
need
just
a
have
new.
to carry around one of the 90-pound cylinders. That's all you have to do.
All you have to do,
Easy.
throw it over your shoulder. Don't worry about it. Anyways,
It was
yeah, fine. We'll link up with that. Jeremy shared his impressive Dayton Audio Ultramax. This is the guy who thought that we weren't giving Dayton Audio enough credit.
I think isn't this a different guy? I mean, also thinks we're not giving.
No, it's a different guy. There's more than I just assumed there can
else.
only be one of them.
Oh no, there's
I mean,
lots of
fine.
do-it-yourself subwoofer people now.
Yeah. Anyways, he shares his impressive Dayton Audio Ultramax 15 Ultimax 15 subwoofer with SPA 1000 amplifier that he built and finished in a gorgeous 3-stage automotive paint and clear coat, and it's really nice.
It looks really nice. It's very impressive looking.
Kind of orangey, but it's as good as any professional thing I've ever seen done. That's for those glossy finishes and stuff. It looks fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
For about $700 in materials, he's quite certain he got a tremendous bang for a buck. Although his time investment on the finishing was, quote, substantial. As long as you don't value your time, you don't count your time, you don't count any materials you purchased in order to help finish this thing. Or if you don't mind having just raw plywood in your in your home theater, then yes, these Dayton Audio things definitely can save you some money. But I saw that and I was like, he tripled the price of that. You know, the actual cost of that subwoofer with that finish easily. So it's that's a $2,100 sub.
I mean, if he were able to do that like on a regular basis with any sort of efficiency, he could easily sell those.
That's what I would do, dude. Jeremy, you got a business going right here. The official AV Rant sub guy thing where you can put our logo on things. And you don't have to, but you get to. And you start, but you say, listen, it's going to be Parts Express. You know what you're getting. I'm not going to change any of that. I'm not going to give you any fancy silver wire or any of this. It's just going to be freaking gorgeous when it comes to your house. And people are like, yeah. And you show pictures, and believe me, they'll buy it. And you can charge them $1,400 or $1,000.
Yeah, just for comparison's sake, because this is what he could do with about $700 worth of materials, but plus his time investment, obviously. Over at HSU, they have their ULS 15, which is also a sealed 15-inch, similarly powerful subwoofer to this Dayton design, and they sell those for $1,100 in the standard black finish, $1,200 in the rose nut wood grain finish. So I think that's comparable, to be honest. But obviously he got it at a lower price. No debating that, but he put in the time to finish it really nicely. If you don't take the time to do as nice a finish as this, which is, you certainly could. I mean, you could just paint it textured black, right? You could get that like bed liner stuff that people spray in the back of their trucks, spray that over some MDF, and it would look fine. Stick it in
That's
the corner.
exactly what it mostly looks like when they do that. Take the driver out, spray that thing down, because that's exactly what that looks like.
So then, you're probably getting something that's similar to about an $1,100 subwoofer for like $700. So yeah. Good bang for your buck. Can't deny it.
Yep. Still. Anyways, holding my tongue. He did thank us for our advice on placement, though. He now has it at the midpoint of a wall with his Velodyne servo sub directly opposite across the room. He says the bass in his room sounds much better. So, yay.
There you go.
Henry started his email by thanking us profusely for our efforts on the podcast. You're welcome.
You're welcome, Henry.
Our pleasure.
Happy to do it.
Yep. Happier when I don't have to get up at 5 a.m. tomorrow, but happy. He's put together a dedicated theater room in his basement with a front projector and surround sound. His room is approximately 15 by 15 by 8. Oh man.
Let's hope it's not exactly.
I was gonna say, let's hope it's more like 60 by 14 by 8. Something not square, with some sections of the ceiling being 7 feet due to bulkheads. He already owns a Sony STR DG500 AV receiver, never heard of it. One pair of Athena ASB1 bookshelf speakers, and a Mirage LF150 subwoofer. LF150 doesn't sound like a very big subwoofer to me.
It's not a
Just by the
particularly big
numbers.
subwoofer.
Just looking at the number, I
Just by
think.
the numbers.
I think it's a sad little thing. It needs to be replaced. He is primarily looking for suggestions for a new $500 AV receiver. He plans on purchasing the Fluence XL7F towers and matching XL7C center. The looks are a large factor in why he likes those particular speakers, but also the fact that he's in Canada. So didn't we talk about this guy last week?
We talked outside of the recording. So
Oh, okay.
That's why you're remembering.
Oh, okay. But also the fact that he was in Canada, so the free shipping is also a nice bonus. So in addition to the AV Rant receiver recommendation, he also wants to know, are the Fluence speakers a good choice for his room? Will it be okay to use the existing Athena speakers as his surrounds? And should he replace his Mirage subwoofer? Yes. And if so, with what? Many choices there. But first of all, I actually did some research to look you up a couple of receivers, and then Rob mentioned that, or reminded me that you're in Canada, so accessories for less is not going to work. So
unless you can ship it to someone you know in the U.S. who can then ship it to you.
You could talk to Leaf, but I don't think he's got that deal going anymore. I like the name Leaf. I always have. Anyways, so yes, you've got some receiver recommendations.
Yeah, so I checked around. I have to say, there's a couple of sites. I used to always point people to a site called electronicsforless.ca. They actually spell out the 4, F-O-R, not the numeral 4 as accessories for less does. But electronicsforless.ca, I used to point people there back when I was pretty high on Onkyo as a recommendation for AV receivers because they sell Onkyo. But they do not sell Denon or Marantz, and these days I tend to be leaning much more strongly towards Denon and Marantz as far as their feature sets goes. So, a couple of sites, Gibby's Electronic Supermarket.ca. It's a long name, but it's exactly as it sounds.
Gibby?
They are Gibby, Gibby.
All right.
Gibby's Electronic Supermarket, and another one called avgear.ca. Both of those places, for whatever reason, they have a nice selection. They're often selling things at discounts or B stock. B stock usually just means they literally took a return. So it's, pretty much almost brand new. Right now, Bees has a couple of receivers for $500 in Canada. They are B stock items, but I would not let that, I wouldn't take that as any sort of detriment in this case. They have a Marantz SR5008. That's almost a couple of years old now. They also have a Denon AVR X3100W, which is a darn nice unit.
Isn't that brand new, basically? Isn't that this year's? Yeah.
It's got all the wireless stuff. It has pre-outs, a full set of pre-outs if you want to add a separate amplifier later, and it has the Bluetooth and Wi-Fi built in. The only thing it doesn't have is Atmos, but $500 you're not going to get Atmos anyway, or if you do, it's going to be a horrible version. Both of them are Odyssey Multi-EQ XT. So not XT32, but again, $500 you wouldn't expect to be getting XT32. So I like both of those options a lot. It's kind of a toss-up. I mean, if you want the wireless features, then obviously go with the Denon. But yeah, I sent those links directly by email so that he has them. But those would easily be my top 2 recommendations because for $500 you're not going to do better than that.
Yeah, I think I was looking around that same price point, and there were some Yamahas as well at accessories for less. But like I said, it doesn't really do them any good.
Yeah.
All right. His second part is about the Fluence speakers. He's already got Athena speakers, and honestly,
well, I think he only has a pair though, but he's using as his surrounds.
No, well, I understand. That's what he's going to do with them. He's going to use them as his surrounds, but he does. I imagine they're not his surrounds right now. It's got to have something else.
I would guess not. No.
Yeah. I don't know that. Like, I think Fluence is a perfectly fine manufacturer to go with if it's your very first setup, and all that. So, there are so many good Canadian brand speakers that have decent prices. I don't know that I would go with Fluence, especially if you're looking for really good sound. I think they're okay. Their sound quality. They're really a price point leader, and they do that by cutting as many corners as possible. There's nothing wrong with that, and they make a good-looking speaker, and that's great for people who are not very serious about this, that just want to get into it for as cheap as possible and see how they like it. I love recommending Fluence, but I don't feel like you're going to be a Fluence guy. I feel like if you've already heard the Athenas, chances are you're going to hear the Fluences and go, I don't think I should have done this now that I think about that.
Yeah, I mean the draw of the XL7F towers in particular is they're under $500 up for the pair.
Yeah,
They look the way they look, which is quite nice. You know, they got rounded cabinets. They have that sort of burl red type finish on them, or at least that's one of the available finishes. You know, they're quite large. They're substantial speakers, to be sure, and you know, and free shipping. That in Canada and the U.S. So I mean, even just getting a tower speaker for $500 for the pair right away, that's difficult to find from a lot of manufacturers. Unfortunately, Athena just doesn't really seem to be around anymore. They kind of just disappeared after Klipsch bought them.
yeah,
So, you know, the equivalent right now would be like Energy. Energy is still available as a brand. But I'd be probably looking more towards something like PSB. PSB does have their Alpha
yeah,
towers. They're like
yeah.
$500 a pair. But he said a huge reason why he likes the Fluences is because of their looks, and the Alpha towers from PSB definitely do not look as nice as these Fluences.
It's
because
too
they're
bad that you
basic
don't have
black
access to
boxes.
RBH because the EMP
Yeah.
towers would completely destroy these
I know
things.
EMP was like the first thing because the EMP look is quite similar, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah. Well,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, yeah. But EMP Tech, I don't know if they even ship to Canada at all. I tried to buy something from them, but this is several years ago, and they wouldn't even ship to Canada at the time. I don't know if they do now, but if they do, it's obviously going to add money to the price, and you're already looking at $700 a pair
Yeah.
for their towers. So everything is, you know, substantially more expensive
Yeah.
going there. So yeah, I can see why the Fluents are a draw, and it's not as though they're bad speakers. We're not saying that. If you have them and you like them, I wouldn't blame anybody. But yeah,
They're
they're
entry level. They really are. And
yeah,
I mean, the price
yeah.
point tells you that right there. Uh, and that's fine. If you want to get them, don't let me slow you down.
Hmm.
But I would definitely spend some time listening to like PSBs. I would even
Paradigm.
Paradigm. Heck, I'm trying to think of some of the. Well, is no is
Energy.
Hyperion up there? No, they're
Well,
like Washington or something, right?
yeah, Aperion does ship to Canada,
Hmm.
but they don't have any towers at a $500 per pair price point.
Why does he have to have towers? He's got tiny room. I mean, it's not tiny, but
Not tiny,
why do you
yeah.
need towers? Let's ask that question. Is it because of you don't want to buy stands? Because you certainly don't need towers, especially
I
since we're
think
going
he
to be
likes the look. I think he likes the look.
well, they get a nice looking bookshelf. There's lots of good bookshelves that look nice. The Sierras look, or those are how much are those a pair? I don't remember.
Well,
Is
the
it 1,000?
Sierras are way more expensive. They're
No,
$2,000 a pair
it's
for
the
the Sierra.
twos.
Oh,
They're not a
no,
one.
the bookshelves. The bookshelves are what is it, 780 a pair?
I don't
Like
know.
that, 800 something
The
a pair.
Varus ones are pretty cheap, you know. So, anyways, there's a lot of options out there, dude. I would look into them if I were you.
Hmm.
But if you're dead set on those, then I wouldn't worry about the Athenas as bookshelves as being a bad match for the surrounds. You'll probably be fine there.
No, they'll be fine then in that. Yeah, the last part being his subwoofer. I mean, going by the price he's trying to get his speakers for, I'm guessing $500 for a sub might be more than he wants to pay. But I gotta tell you, SVS gives free ship in Canada now.
Yeah,
Awfully hard to beat them as a deal because even if you went for the least expensive, let's say HSU subwoofer, like that STF2 that I'm always recommending, by the time you ship it into Canada, it ends up more expensive than getting a SB1000 or PB1000 from SVS with their free shipping in Canada.
or the
So
15 by 15 by 8 too. You can probably get
yeah,
away with the SB.
exactly.
It's definitely
Yeah.
1,000.
It's
So.
really hard for me to recommend anything other than SVS in Canada,
I
just
guess you
because
can
of
try
the
to get that
shipping.
Dayton audio guy, Jeremy, whatever his name is,
Right?
ship you something.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll ship you something.
Yeah, you could get a kit. Parts Express offers less expensive shipping to Canada now.
They'll at least tell you what you get yourself into.
It's still a bunch of your money being spent on shipping. That's always difficult for me to. Well, I mean, obviously SVS is just rolling the shipping price into the price of the sub, so it's not as though
Yeah.
it's actually free, but at least it's not extra on top of the retail price. So
All right.
yeah.
David thanked us for saving him from falling down the two-channel only rabbit hole. He has a completely different setup now than what he would have had in mind 6 months ago, and he's using dual subwoofers, Odyssey Multi-Q XC32, bass traps, and absorptive panels, none of which he would have done if he had only listened to the two-channel salesman. Ain't that the freaking truth, dude? But you would have cables the size of garden hose. So you had that, and little electrical looking things holding them off the ground to keep the static electricity bugs from getting in there.
Yep.
He scored a great deal
Electric
on some
tubes.
RBH 661 SE and 66 SE speakers, and he's loving his incredible sound quality. Dude, those are some good speakers.
Uh-huh.
You done did good.
Yeah, those are nice speakers.
However, the RBH 661 SE front speakers are massive for so-called bookshelf speakers. Again, ain't that the truth? Those things are not light. I think they're like ridiculous. They're like 60 pounds or something.
They're towers with their bottoms cut off. That's what they are.
That's all they are. They're huge. He likes something more visually attractive than the cinder blocks he's currently using as stands. Oh, thank God he's not asking for other speakers. Because I'd be like, no, you can't get rid of the speakers. But stability is paramount to him, so is there anything we can recommend? Yeah, a table. a really nice end table. Stick them on those. What are those speakers? Are those massive ones with like the 4 tweeters? Is that what they are?
No. They're a woofer design.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
But a 6.5-inch driver, 1-inch tweeter, 6.5-inch driver, and I think they're about 8.5 inches wide, about 11 inches deep or so. So they're almost a foot deep.
That's not too bad. I've seen worse.
Like 17, 18 inches high. So I mean.
That's the part that probably gets them.
Yeah, compared to what you would normally call a bookshelf speaker, they are definitely large. There's no question about that.
I'm trying to see them right now.
I had a suggestion, which is over at Ascend Acoustics. Their CMT 340 speakers are not quite as large as the RBH, but they're similar sized. They're only about an inch less wide and about an inch less deep. Ascend sells some, they call them pedestals rather than stands, because that's basically what they look like, that would work very well for these RBH speakers. Now, the RBH speakers, like I say, they're slightly larger than the CMT, so they would look a little bit more like they're on stands. They would overhang just slightly on the width and on the depth, but they will definitely be held well. And these pedestals from Ascend do come with like a bracket where you can physically screw in. I mean, I'm not sure if you'd want to screw into the actual cabinet of your speaker, but when you're talking about stability, and he already got these speakers used, I know, and it's on the back where nobody's ever going to see it anyway. So want to really secure them to these pedestals, you can do it. And what Dave Fabricant, who runs Ascend Acoustics, recommends for these pedestals is they are hollow and you can fill them. Lots of people fill them with sand or lead shot or something else. He recommends you get a like plastic bag and fill it with kitty litter. The reason for that being that kitty litter absorbs any moisture that might be in there, so it works like a desiccant. Am I saying that right?
Yes, that's...
Anyway,
yeah.
It absorbs any moisture that might be in there. And what he always suggests doing is filling them halfway. So, like, from the bottom to the halfway point, you fill them that high and then still leave the rest of it hollow. Because if you fill them all the way up, they actually get more tippy than if you just fill them halfway. And then you have a really solid base. You can physically secure them with a bracket and screws. And those things, they won't be going anywhere. So.
Yeah, you can always just check companies like Sanus too.
Oh,
Sanus makes a lot of really good stuff as well.
Yeah.
My Sanus stands I absolutely love, and they can be filled as well.
Mm-hmm.
I never have. They're crazy heavy, so I don't know why I would. To be honest with you, they're a pain in the butt to move as it is. So I'm certainly not going to start moving around anymore. So you can check them out as well. I highly recommend them. He'd also he's concerned about his amplification. He's using a Denon AVR X4000, but the RBH speakers are spec'd at 4 ohms and 6 ohms. I don't understand. I thought he's got 2 channels.
Well, no, he's expanded it.
He has. Okay, good. All right, I just got a little confused there for a second.
Mm-hmm.
He's also concerned with blah, 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 4 ohms and 6 ohms. He also has a son who apparently likes to try and crank the volume loud enough to hear it in his treehouse outside. Sounds like you, sir, need a new son. Let's start with that. Someone needs some discipline in this house, and there's going to be some beatings.
Don't want to discourage anyone who likes audio at a young age.
So yeah, headphones. So David would like to know how to protect his new speakers. He's already had some speakers get blown up previously this way. Jesus. Seriously, that kid needs us talking to. And if we would recommend adding a separate high-powered amp, well, first of all, he shouldn't be listening to it so loud that he can hear it in the treehouse outside. All right, get that boy one of those Braven, little portable speakers. That's the one that is like water resistant. That it's made of aircraft grade aluminum. It sounds like garbage, but it doesn't matter because you could drop it out of a treehouse and it'll still work. That was the one that I did the video with. What's his name? Andrew Gash, and he kept throwing the speaker and dropping the speaker
Oh,
and
right,
everything
yeah.
else. That was the one. I mean, the thing is great. You take it outside, you get dirt all over it, no one cares. You wash it off. It's great. Get him something like that so that he's not messing with your speakers anymore and trying to blow them up. Now, because you shouldn't have a problem with four ohms and 6 ohms with the Denon unless your room is massive.
And it isn't. We've seen the pictures.
Yeah.
He's actually sitting quite close to all
Yeah.
the speakers.
So there's no reason for it to your Denon to run out of power with these things. So yeah, I think spend $100 on a Braven speaker or a set of headphones, or $100 on a set of headphones for your kid if you want them to have good sound and no reason not to answer when you call. Give them some headphones, and that'll be cheaper than any of your other possible solutions.
Now, as far as protecting things, I looked through the Denon AVR X4000's manual, and there is an option to set a maximum volume limit. So look for that in the manual as to all the menus you'll have to dig through to set that. But it gives you the options to set the maximum volume to -20, -10, or 0 dB, being full reference volume. Now, or off, of course, you can set it so that there is no maximum volume. I would recommend setting it to 0 because you should be able to turn your system up to 0 and listen at full reference volume if you wish to, and that should not be so loud that it will be exploding any electronics or speakers. So yeah, make use of that, and then that's as loud as it will ever go.
That's right. You could do that. That's right. In fact, I forgot about that. That is on there as well. And don't forget as well to set it so that it resets the volume every time you turn it on and off, because you can do that with the X4000 as well. You don't want it to come back on at full reference volume when you sit within arm's length of those speakers, because then you will need new ears, and I can't help you with that. So, Ryan wanted to confirm that he is properly setting. Oh, he wanted to confirm that he is properly setting up distances and levels. He has a Sony STR DN1030 that offers an auto setup room correction program, but he says that it is not very good. So he manually. That's not what he
Seems
said.
like we've heard that before.
Yeah, we're starting to see some sort of trend here. Anyways, so he manually set up all of his speakers to small with an 80 hertz crossover points. He measured the physical distances with a tape measure and entered those values manually. I assume to his main listening position, not like to each other or some other random place. But just want to specify that. Then he used an SPL meter app on his smartphone and the internal test tones from the Sony to adjust all the speakers and his subwoofer until they all read the same dB level on his phone. Well, it should be 75 dB. I mean, usually that's what it is. So
yeah, it should be 75 from those internal test tones.
So he wants to know if he did anything wrong or if there's some substantially better way for him to tune and set up his system without buying a whole new AV receiver. I'm assuming he's not liking the sound.
No, that wasn't it. I think he just really wants to confirm that he's done all he can do as far as manually adjusting the settings for his speakers, since the auto setup did not give him particularly pleasing results. So it's not that he did all this and hates the way it sounds. He just wants to confirm, like, did he do it right?
Yep, you did it right.
Yeah, yes, you did.
As long as that SPL meter app on your smartphone isn't completely wrong.
Right.
Which is what I would be worried about. Yeah, I would spend $50 and go to find the last surviving Radio Shack and get yourself a SPL meter.
Or there are other SPL meters now that you can get that are a little bit more expensive, unfortunately, than the old Radio Shack ones used to be, but certainly still usable. So
there's still Radio Shacks. There's one around here. There's one right down by my pub books.
Not for too long.
Yeah, those people don't know anything. You go in there and they look all like shell shocked. So Ryan, you're good. Yay, Ryan.
Yeah. I think that's all good.
That's exactly what you're supposed to do. All right. These days, it's it's almost a lost art, right? It used to be I had to tell everybody how to do that, and now when I first started, I was writing articles about how to crawl for bass, how to set your use your SPL meter, all this other stuff. And I was reading articles like that as well.
Mhm.
All right, Joel had a somewhat similar question to Ryan's. He just got a new Denon AVR X3000, which is very similar to the X4000, except it doesn't have the XT32. He's enjoying its sound quality and prefers Odyssey Multi-EQ XT to this previous Yamaha Y-Pow experience. However, he's always gone back and double-checked the speaker level settings using his SPL app on his iPhone. Ha!
Mm-hmm.
He knows that it reads all of the speaker levels as 72 dB instead of 75 dB. Aha!
Doesn't necessarily mean that Odyssey did it wrong.
Yes.
It's entirely possible that it is just slightly miscalibrated using the microphone that's built into the iPhone. Almost every SPL
If all of the speakers are measuring the same, I would walk away.
Right. I wouldn't worry about that in the least, because all the SPL meter apps that I've ever seen always have a calibrate option where you could use a separate SPL meter to calibrate the reading of the app so that it is accurate, or at least reading the same thing as the external SPL meter. So there, I really wouldn't worry about that, because if all your speakers are reading 75 dB according to Odyssey, but they're reading 72 on the app, then yeah, that's just
add 3 to your app mentally in your head. Just do it in your head, dude. But he was particularly confused when it read the subwoofer's output as being only 58 dB.
Right.
Yeah.
That's way low.
That's you would even know that. That's easily noticeable difference to your ears as well.
Barely hearing the test tone. If it
58, 58. There's probably 40 dB noise in your room just from you being in there. He manually increased the subwoofer's trim until it read 68 dB on his. That was probably as much as it'll let him do, 10 dB on his SPL meter app. And he much prefers the sound versus where Odyssey had the subwoofer level. He also tried manually adjusting all of the trim levels, including the subwoofer, until they all read 75 dB on this SPL meter app. But then it sounded unbalanced. That doesn't surprise me. He'd like to know what's going on and what sort of results we get in our own theaters. He's also confused because his previous Yamaha did not give these sorts of results. Everything read SPL on this 75 dB on this SPL meter app, and it sounded balanced and fine. I can't tell you for sure what's going on, but I would have run Odyssey again at least one more time to see what happened with that subwoofer, because that seems Odyssey, the multi-Q shouldn't have even run if it was 20 dB off.
Yeah.
You know,
it would have told you your subwoofer is too quiet. That's what it should have done. If it was actually playing back at 58 dB instead of 75, right? So I question if that's the case.
Yeah, and I question whether or not your phone can really accurately measure that really low bass anyways.
Well, something went hinky here, because I mean, if it was all reading 75 dB previously using the same app on the same phone when he ran it in his Yamaha, I mean, this is why he's thinking something went wrong in the Denon as opposed to something being hinky in his app. But something is way off here, and my first suspect thing would be the app, not the AV receiver. So
could very be the way he's holding it, the phone, and a bunch of other variables that could make a big difference as well.
Yeah, and I don't know if, I mean, did you possibly even upgrade your iPhone from the one you had before to the one you have now? Because they have different mics when you go to a new model. And, like Ray Coronado is just chiming in. He says the mic on the iPhone is frequency limited. So any apps have to try and compensate for the known frequency limitations of the mic, because the mic was made to capture your voice during phone calls, not so much to read all the way from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz as a fantastic recording microphone for the full range of frequencies. So yeah, I'm a little bit dubious.
The fact that it was reading all the speakers the same, and then the subwoofer was completely different indicates to me that there's something going on with the app. Now, the fact that he bumped up the volume of the bass and liked it more afterwards makes me think that he's sitting in a null at the same time.
Or he just likes more bass, and I mean, I think he did
10 dB more would be. I mean, if I did that in my home theater, it would be insane. Like everything would sound boomy.
I think I recall him saying he was using dynamic EQ, but if he wasn't using dynamic EQ, that would actually make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because if he would say listening at minus 20 dB on his master volume dial, turning it up 10 dB would make a whole lot of sense because
Yeah.
it would take the subwoofer from being inaudible to audible, and everybody prefers that. But dynamic EQ ought to be adjusting that properly if it is in fact engaged. I wonder if he has dynamic volume engaged because that would make everything sound bad.
Well, yeah, technically. Only time I like dynamic volume was when I'm trying to take a nap.
Exactly.
Great when
Yeah.
you're trying to take a
And it
nap.
just
Nothing
flattens
wakes you up.
everything.
Yep.
Nothing sounds right. Yeah. So
We don't
again,
know.
I think the solution. I think the real solution here, before we go saying there's something wrong with the Denon or wrong with Odyssey, I'm totally for running Odyssey again. I mean, anytime
Yes.
you get kinky results, just run it again because obviously that happens a lot. Just getting strange results from the first run through of Odyssey. But I would strongly recommend getting an actual SPL meter and not just relying on the app because the app, there's so many variables.
Hmm.
Going on there. It's tough to rely on that. I
It,
like having it as
yeah.
like to carry around, but I always go back to my SPL meter when I actually want to check.
Yeah, I do the same thing. It's very odd because I mean, so many things can happen during these things. Like if you're in the room when the measurements are being taken, that can make a difference. If depending on where you put the mic, when
Hmm.
you know, it's like if you've got a big tall couch and you've got it sitting down in the lap, like where your lap would be, rather than where your head would be, or sitting like right next to the headrest or something. All these things can make a difference, and when you're so running it more than once makes sense until you get a sound that you really like. It should not read 20 dB difference. I
Yeah,
mean, actually it's what 15 dB, so it's
more or
not
less.
quite.
Yeah,
It's the 14 dB difference,
way
but
off. So
it's still way off, and it shouldn't be that far off. 14 dB is huge.
yeah,
So something's askew here, and we got to figure out what it is. So I think the first step would be to run Odyssey again and check everything again
yeah.
and see where you are. It's not everything should be very close to the same,
Hmm.
because provided that your app is working properly. If it's not, then who knows? Uh, all right, so that was all last week. This is this week. Yay! After an hour, Mark has a 23 by 23 by 9 in foot room with count them, five subwoofers. Two up front, three in the back. Okay, I didn't look at these pictures. His gear is
No,
as follows: Pioneer SC 1522K. Jeez, what
that's
is
his
that?
AV receiver.
I know, but what is it? SC is
It's
the elite one for sure.
yeah, it's fairly high end that one.
Hmm.
So pretty good. I think it's a 9.2
Nice.
AV receiver. Yep.
DirecTV HD Genie. Hey, Genie in the bottle. Marantz IV 520 Laserdisc player. Kicking the
It's
old
probably
school.
LV.
Is
Yeah,
that supposed to be
laser
LV?
video. I think it's probably LV, laser video. I would
Yeah,
imagine
probably.
that's right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It looks like a lowercase
Laser
I from here.
disc.
Uh, Dude, I remember seeing laser discs. I have so many stories of laser discs. It's actually the same story over and over again, but I have it. Epson PowerLight Home Cinema 2030 projector.
Mhm.
It has a 170-inch DIY painted on screen, per the Projector Central DIY article. So
170 inches, dude. That is a big screen.
that is massive. Mark has a very large 2500. 2500.
Hmm.
That's a lot. A DVD collection. He also still plays laser discs from time to time. As such, he thinks video processing it in an Oppo BDP-103 would likely be worthwhile in this case. He'd like to know, A, would Darby version be worth it in this case? No, I don't think
I,
so.
I, I personally don't think so. The upscaling in the standard 103 is excellent upscaling. It's about as good as you can get for taking a DVD and turning it into 1080p resolution. Yes, some people like the Darby effect, and yes, the Darby effect is like you can manipulate it. There's a whole scale. I think it doesn't it go to like 120 instead of
Something
100.
like that. It doesn't go to 100. It goes
It doesn't go
past
to 100. It
100.
goes past
Goes to
100.
11.
Hmm. But I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan myself. I don't know. I mean, I can only give you my opinion.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I say stick with the regular 103. That's as good
It's
as
gonna
it
what it's
gets.
gonna do is gonna take stuff that looks blurry. If you know, and he's got a
Hmm.
170-inch screen, so maybe
Right.
he is running this issue. Things that look a little bit blurry, and it tries to sharpen them up. Does it do a
Hmm.
good job? Well, it can, but you have to be very careful. Like it goes to like 130, and I think I remember when I was talking to the guys at Oppo, they were like, about 25 is what you want to say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, you're barely using the
And
thing.
Yeah, I mean, as much as yes, blowing it up to 170-inch screen, DVD, no matter how good the upscaling is never going to look as sharp as a Blu-ray source. That's just never going to happen, especially at that size. But at that size, you also amplify any artifacts that happen because of something like Darby. So it's the double-edged sword. You're saying, I'd like to clean it up even more than just regular upscaling, even the best upscaling, like what the Oppo 103 already has, but yeah, then you'll also see any artifacts. I'm not in favor of spending an extra $100 to add artifacts.
But
In
then
my
again,
bag.
dude, you save so much money on that screen. Maybe you
Yeah.
got extra $100 lying around.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you can always get the Darby Vision and then just never use it, but
That's always
then
an option.
that's kind of a waste of $100, which I think is why he's asking us. So.
Oppo replied to one of his emails to let him know that the BD103 also has an HDMI input, and anything that runs
Mhm.
through that input can be upscaled using BDP103's video processing, which is exactly what I was thinking you would do. Would this
Mhm.
do anything to improve his HD sources, such as his DirecTV cable box? Why on God's green earth would you use it for that?
Interlacing.
I understand that, but
Yeah.
I would rather use it for that Laserdisc player.
Well, he's not saying he won't. Um, he's asking, would it do anything for your HD sources? Blu-ray? No.
No.
It's not going to do any, like, if you, I don't know why you would have another Blu-ray player that you would run through the Oppo when the Oppo is a Blu-ray player, so that one's a little bit odd. But the DirecTV cable box, that's sending out 1080i.
Yeah.
Or it might have the option to send out 1080p, but it is deinterlacing inside, and believe me, the deinterlacing inside of any cable box is not as good as the
Yeah.
deinterlacing inside of the Oppo. So have your cable box send out. Well, the best option would be if it could send out the native signal of whatever the channel is, because some channels are 720p and some channels are 1080i, and if you have that option of just sending it through
Some are
as it is,
480i as well, so
sure, yeah.
yeah.
But do that if you can. If not, set it to 1080i output and then let the Oppo do the deinterlacing. So yes, it can improve even HD sources.
Yeah. And next he says, so yes, it can help.
Hmm.
But I would have thought the first thing that came to my mind was a Laserdisc player, not his cable box. Um, and that won't help those things like the compression artifacts. That's not going to help that.
That's yeah. That's
God, man, I was at
industry
my
standard.
parents watching cable just this weekend, and we got to some channel, and there was all these compression artifacts from bandwidth limits. And I've seen it happen before. And my dad's like, "Oh, you got to do this thing where you to turn it off and do this and do that and do that, and it clears it up." I'm like, "No." I hate compression artifacts so much. It's like the most irritating thing. It's like somebody decided, most people aren't really watching this channel, so we won't dedicate all that bandwidth to HGTV. Are you kidding me? Why is so irritating? Anyways, where should he put his BDP, Oppo BDP 103 in the signal chain? Should he connect all of his sources to an HDMI switch, connect the switch to the Oppo, and then connect the Oppo to his AV receiver?
No.
Or should he connect all of his sources to his AV receiver, then connect the AV receiver to the Oppo, and then the Oppo to his projector?
Yes. That one. Second one.
But how's it? He's got to get his audio from his Oppo back to the receiver too.
The Oppo has two HDMI outputs. So
Oh,
he
that's
can
true.
run one for video only out to his projector, and he can run the second one for audio only, which is an option inside the Oppo's setup menus, back to the receiver so that it can still get all of his lovely HD audio via HDMI.
Hmm, there you go.
That's the way to do it. So you're now going to use your Pioneer AV receiver as a switch. The Pioneer AV receiver does have video processing built into it. It has Marvell QDO, which is not bad at all, but not quite as good as what the Oppo gives you. So turn off all the video processing. Just set it to pass through any of the sources. You can use that as your switch, and then all of those will come out of one HDMI output from the Pioneer receiver. You plug that into the input of the Oppo, and your Oppo acts as a video processor. And
There
then
you go.
it sends the video onto the projectors. So
Lastly, what is the best way to connect his Laserdisc player specifically? It only offers composite or S video output, and his Pioneer SC blah 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 does not have any S video input. Should you use an S video to HDMI converter?
how much do you really care about your laser discs, man? Because I mean, S video is technically superior to composite. That regular yellow video composite cable is one of the lowest quality connections you can have, other than just like the F-type, screw in that
The
also goes
RF, the RF one, it was so bad.
regular cable into your wall thing.
I remember
Yeah.
when you used to have like a red and white wire, and you have to screw them in, and then there'd be a
Oh
little.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh God.
Little UHF, VHF antenna thingies.
Yes. Awesome.
Yeah. If you're only watching Laserdiscs once in a while, I just would go for convenience. I'd use the composite output. I'd plug it into the Pioneer. The Pioneer can take that composite out signal and turn it into HDMI, and then send that HDMI output to the OPPO for the video
There's
processing.
no inputs in the back of the Oppo, right?
Not analog
Yeah,
video,
yeah,
just
it's just
HDMI
HDMI.
video.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you really care about Laserdisc, then yeah, you could get an S video to HDMI converter. You could do it. I don't know if you want to spend that money. Yeah,
Yeah. Upgrade the receiver too, I guess, while you're at it. Yeah, technically S video is better. I mean, basically it splits
yeah.
out. What is it? It splits out color in black and white.
Splits out luminance and chrominance. So black and white and the color information are two separate signals, and it
Rather,
is a superior signal.
I don't
Yeah.
know that you're going to notice that superiority when you blow it up to 170 inches, though. I would guess that it would not. You would not be noticing that.
Eh,
Nick, we talked quite a bit about Mahi's experience where he went from Andrew Jones Pioneer speakers to the Ascend Acoustic Sierra 2s and didn't really feel like he had fully gotten his money's worth. Nick is on the opposite side of the spectrum. He went from a 5.1 Axiom audio setup to just a pair of Ascend Acoustic Sierra 2s for the time being, and he's very happy with the difference. He says that he no longer gets listening fatigue, which happens usually when your top end is shrill. And he also says that the imaging is so good that he's almost fooled into thinking he still has a 5-speaker surround sound, even though he's only using a stereo pair. Nick would like to complete a full 5-speaker setup, though, and he is saving up. He would like to know if his money would be best spent getting three. Oh God, don't ask Rob this. 3 more Sierra 2 speakers, including a Sierra 2 center, or the Sierra Horizon Center plus a pair of CBM 170 SEs for surrounds, or the Sierra Horizon Center plus a pair of Philharmonic Audio, whatever they are, bookshelf speakers.
Philhar monitors. I gotta love that name. They called them
I,
the Philhar
I don't have to love
monitors.
that name. I don't. Bookshelf speakers which use a Foundtech ribbon tweeter. Oh, that's the last one. Nick is trying to find the best balance between having the most clarity and detail in his center speaker while also getting a good timbre match for his surrounds. Um, I wouldn't be incredibly worried about the timbre match for the surrounds. I know Rob will be. But I would be worried about that timbre match for that center channel. I would
Oh
be worried
yes.
about that.
Oh yes. And I can tell you, yeah, I should clarify, he was planning on getting the Sierra Horizon Center with the ribbon tweeter upgrade so
Of
that he
course.
would have ribbon tweeters all around. I can tell you that the Sierra 2 boosters and the Sierra Horizon Center with the ribbon tweeter upgrade, they do have an excellent timbre match. So as far as that center timbre matching the Sierra 2 bookshelf speakers, bang on there. They have a really excellent timbre match. The real question is the Sierra Horizon with the RAW ribbon tweeter upgrade, which is a $1,300 speaker just by itself, is that, or 1350 in fact, is that worth it over the Sierra 2 center, which is just a Sierra 2 turned on its side with the ribbon tweeter rotated so that it's vertical instead of horizontal as it would be if you just turn the whole speaker. And ooh, is that? I mean, that is a really splitting hairs one, man. I got to tell you. If you did a direct A/B comparison, like instantaneously switching back and forth between the two of them, um, I think it might be possible to actually hear a slight difference. But I got to tell you, in my experience, if I were to put to a blind test and said, "Is this the Sierra Horizon or is this the Sierra 2?" I would not be confident in a blind test. I really would not. I think maybe I could do it. I'm not saying there's zero difference, but it's darn close. So the real question is, are you getting something worthwhile in having the Sierra 2s as your surrounds as well? Um, or would the CBM 170 or these Philhar monitor speakers be close enough in timbre match? I got to tell you, both of those sound different. They have a different timbre from the Sierra 2s. They just clearly do. That Foundtech ribbon tweeter does not sound like the RAL ribbon tweeter, and it has narrower dispersion, which most ribbon tweeters have. The RAL ribbon tweeters are odd for ribbon tweeters in that they have very wide horizontal dispersion. So I wouldn't say go for that Philhar monitor as being a closer match to the Sierra 2s than the CBM 170s. I wouldn't say that's what you're getting. You're getting a different sound than the CBM 170s, but I wouldn't say it's a closer timbre match to the Sierra 2s. So if you're ideal goal is that all 5 of your speakers timbre match. I'd say get 3 more Sierra 2s because the Sierra 2 center is a darn good center speaker. Yeah, I think that's the way I'd lean, to be honest.
All right, there you go.
Yeah.
Spending other people's money. Chances are, though, regardless of what speaker you get for the surround speakers, just don't do as much.
Right.
And it is, if you're not listening to a lot of music that's specifically mixed in surround, I'm not sure you're going to notice it. You're going to notice that tamper matching difference. Will there be one? Yes. Will you notice it? Not very often.
Yep.
Not very often. So you could very well get away with a much cheaper speaker for that those surround speakers, not have to spend all this money on all these Sierra 2s so that you could be Rob's little clone, and and have a fantastic setup that every once in a while you go, that sounds a little bit off, and that would be it. And by every once in a while, I'm talking likely it's going to happen every couple of months at the most, in my opinion. But maybe it'll be a lot more. Maybe it'll really bother you. So I'm at least trying to throw some voice of reason into all this, spending other people's money on.
One thing I would just say is that when you have a truly homogeneous sound field where all 5 speakers are exactly the same and sound exactly the same and perfectly timbre match, that is a cool experience for those times when it happens. And because the Sierra 2 center is no slouch, and I would defy you to put it even in a DirectAV comparison with the Horizon and really be able to tell them apart blind, that, since you can get it for the money that you have, potentially, I don't know. That's the way I'd lean. That's all I can say. I think your mic is muted, Tom.
Oh, okay. There we go. Sorry, I was put in this cough drop. All right, some updates. Infinite Gary, Austin, Marvin, John, and another John. All right, here we go. Start with Infinite Gary. When referring to Dolby Atmos and other immersive audio formats, we commented that everyone would have to lower their surround speakers. Infinite Gary just wanted to say that he doesn't think having surround speakers already at ear level is all that uncommon. He's seen lots of home theaters with surround speakers at ear level, including his own. That just means a bunch of you people didn't take our advice when we were given it, like the last 8 years. Okay?
He's not wrong. I've seen plenty.
I'm not saying that it's impossible. I'm saying, I'm not saying that it's even unlikely. I'm just saying that if you had been listening, you would have done it the way we told you to, and that we would now have to be telling you not to do it like that anymore. Heck, I just made this freaking home theater, and my speaker is up there. It is not at ear level, and I certainly could have put it wherever I wanted. In fact, I still could probably pull that wire down if I really wanted to. Always give myself a lot extra. Second, Gary also made a disheartening discovery. God, Gary. While his Runco LED front projector is out for repair, he connected the HDMI output number 1 from his Anthem processor to his Kuro Plasma because he wanted to watch TV. That's why. And after 30 minutes, the strange picture errors he was seeing on his Runco showed up on his Kuro. The Kuro was previously connected to the HDMI 2 on his Anthem and never showed any picture errors. So it seems as though the Anthem is to blame, not his Runco. Don't tell Runco. Let's just start with that. Don't tell them because they'll charge you. Maybe they'll charge you anyways. I don't know. I hope they're not. But don't tell them.
Yeah.
Or maybe you can just like, hey, have you guys started? If they're going to charge you, you go, hey, have you guys started working on them? Yeah, we're going to get to it this week. Okay, send it back. Change my mind.
Are you guys going to do an HDCP 2.2 upgrade? Can you just throw that in there instead?
While you're there, you got the thing open. Let's just HDMI 2.0 with HDCP 2.2. Full bandwidth. Thank you. Austin posted a link on Facebook to Tom's Misogyny and Me blog post that I mentioned last week. So, yay, Tom's.
That link is up there.
That's right. Misogyny and Me. I'm not a misogynist, but sometimes I write like one is the name of the post. And Marvin saw Jared's amazing-looking theater on Facebook and wanted to know what screen size he's using. Do we know?
The blue one, and it is a 120-inch Elite screen, fixed frame screen now. So
that's what I've guessed. I would have guessed about that. That's what it looked like. John bit the bullet and made a speaker purchase. John is a fellow with a large open room with the in-ceiling surrounds and surround back speakers, to whom we would recommend the KEF speakers. He decided to scrap those plans and went with 3 Ascend Acoustic Sierra 2 speakers instead. Damn you, Rob! You're like infectious.
Your speakers won't be to blame. Anything you hear in there now is the fault of the room. It ain't the speakers. I'll give you
He
that much.
agrees that his room might be the limiting factor right now. Do you? Are you sure? But he's considering a dedicated theater in the future where the CR2s might be able to really shine. He also thinks the limited vertical dispersion but wide horizontal dispersion of the CR2s should still work well in his room, especially since the sound now has to cover 6 family members, 4 kids in total now, across a big couch. All right, whatever you say, Dave. Let us know how it works out for you. John, that was John S. This is John M. Was all set to buy the Pioneer, Andrew Jones Pioneer speakers and an SVS PV1000 when his 2-year-old decided decided an entire package of baby wipes needed to be flushed down the toilet. Damn those kids!
Which say do not flush right on the package, which to
Clearly.
me is the silliest thing. Why do baby wipes say do not flush? Like, you can get those other, moistened wipes that are flushable. Get those.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't flush baby wipes down the toilet?
I didn't. I never have. Why would I? The baby wipes, you wipe the butt, you throw it into the diaper, you roll the diaper up, you throw it in the garbage. None of it goes into the... No. Anyways, so this 2-year-old apparently is now up for adoption because the resulting repairs kind of put a dent in his theater budget. A year later, and amazingly no more house damage for any of his 3 kids, and John has finally saved back up. He wound up treating himself to a 7.2 setup, including a Acoustics CMT 340 SE mains and center, Acoustics HTM 200 SE surrounds and surround backs, a Rhythmic LV 2R subwoofer, and a Denon 12R. Sorry,
it's a 12-inch. Yeah.
I need to get this thing closer to me. I have good eyes. I have them tested.
There's one more font size up in Gmail, and it is so large as to be comical. But I suppose I can put it in.
No, it's all right. So well, I can blow it up. I can make my screen bigger. Denon AVR X4000 from Ascend Accessories for Less. It doesn't have a scratch on it, and even smells brand new. So now he's just got to set all this stuff up. So we'll be hearing from John M. in the future about how amazing, hopefully, everything sounds.
Yeah, he sent a nice picture where he just has all of the things, sort of positioned together in one photo, and it is a very nice looking picture of black boxes, since everything is in the form of a plain black box. But it's still gear porn for us home theater type nuts.
Yeah, we like this stuff.
A whole bunch of black boxes. Nothing is sexier.
Mark just wanted some reassurance that buying a Denon AVR X4000 for Accessories for Less would be a good idea. He's never purchased from them before, so he's a little wary. He asked me, he's like, I know you purchased. I did not purchase from them. I purchased directly from Denon. But I purchased my first receiver, which was a B-stock Denon 3805, AVR 3805, way back in the day. When it was the hot Denon X, it was basically the X4000 of its day. It blew everybody away feature-wise. It was a perfect price point, so about $1,000 receiver. I think I only got about $100 off on it, and I'm pretty sure I got it from Accessories for Less. And I loved it. There's nothing wrong with that receiver. It's still in use someplace. I don't know who's got it, but
yeah, I want to put Mark's mind at ease here. We certainly have plenty of listeners. Obviously, John M. just recently getting his X4000 from Accessories for Less. And like you said, shows up, not a scratch on it, smells brand new. Probably was a brand new unit, since it is now a clearance item that Denon is simply getting out of their warehouses, because now they have a 4100, which is soon to be replaced too.
Yeah, the 4100's got a complex now.
Yeah, the 4100 does have Atmos, but it does not have HDCP 2.2, and it will not be getting HDCP 2.2, so it is the odd duck out.
Unless you're Infinite Gary, you send it in for repair, you beg, please, while you have it open, please, I'm begging you.
But yeah, for anyone else who's worried about that refurbished label, because pretty much everything that's sold at Accessories for Less is labeled refurbished, I get it. I get how refurbished totally got a negative connotation just attached to the word, because we had so many crummy, gray market selling you stuff that was like had the serial numbers scratched out, or it was just clearly a very used item that they called refurbished, but did not look new at all. All those types of things, very common. It is not the
Bullet
case.
holes.
Right? Yeah. didn't come with a power cord, missing the remote, all those types of stupid things, right? I totally get that being wary, but Accessories for Nest is not like that. They get their stuff directly from the manufacturers. The manufacturers give it a full 1 year warranty. There's no 90-day warranty like a lot of other refurbished. So this is refurbished done right. That's the only way I can say it. And the
And
X4000,
they're fully licensed from Denon.
exactly.
Denon honors their warranty just like if you had bought it
Yeah,
brand new. That's all you really
exactly.
need to know is that right there. You know that, then that's it.
Yeah, and if you
Uh,
go to any of the manufacturers' websites, they will be listed under an authorized dealer. And that's an important thing. You want to make sure you're buying from an authorized dealer, and they are listed on all of the manufacturers' websites. So, yeah, as far as them as a retailer and the X4000 as a choice, I mean, dude, as long as you don't care about having Atmos right now, it's the way to go.
it
So,
is a year or two from now, this is not going to be the case. It's going to be a
right.
Yamaha, or it's going to be a Marantz, or it's going to be a. It's not going to be an Onkyo. It's going to be something like
It
that.
could be. Onkyo could bounce back. They work.
Onkyo
They're
has done
software
it.
different.
Onkyo was my very
Yeah.
first receiver, and I was an Onkyo loyalist until I
Yeah.
got that
Me
Denon
too.
AVR 3805. So, believe me, or 3508. 3508. I think it was a 3508.
Yeah.
I don't
Never
remember
rings
what
a
it was.
bell.
Anyways. All right. Anyways, Mark. Just wanted some I already did that one.
Oh, we did that one.
Art is putting together a dedicated theater in his new home. In the meantime, he has set up a two-channel system for TV watching and music listening in the room with hardwood floors and a 15-foot ceiling. He's using an Integra DTR 7.8, 7.8, powering a pair of B&W M1 satellites with an ASW 300, subwoofer. Art noticed shaking, rattling, and other noises, so he tried putting the ASW 300 subwoofer in the Auralex Grandma riser. That greatly reduced the shaking and rattling, but it also changed the timbre of the bass and made the subwoofer seem about half as loud.
Mm-hmm.
That actually kind of makes sense when you think about all the extra noise it was adding to the room with all the shaking. He did not change the placement of the subwoofer. Also, Art is just wondering how the Grandma, the subdue, the Grandma riser, could have made this much of a dramatic difference in the sound. He's also wondering how he can get back to the impact he used to hear and feel from a subwoofer. Is it as simple as turning up the volume on the sub? He doesn't like that it sounds and feels. He doesn't like that it sounds and feels as though he has half as much bass and impact as before, but he doesn't want the shaking and rattling to come back either. Mm.
Right. Yes. So, I mean, how does the grandma make this much of a difference? Because before, your whole house, apparently, and this is not even uncommon, but your whole house was moving in sympathy with the physical vibrations of that sub. And if you're wondering how can a little subwoofer shake this entire large room, like Mythbusters showed how you can take one little actuator and attach it to like a gigantic steel frame high rise and make the whole thing shake. If you get a resonance, it does not take very much movement at all to get the entire structure moving. Even people, I hear this all the time, people are like, I have a concrete floor. I don't need decoupling from my subwoofer because I have a concrete floor. Like, no. Anyone who's ever seen that video of the bridge that got just the right breeze blowing across it so that the whole bridge moved like a wave, that bridge was steel and concrete. There is nothing inert about concrete. It can move. And if you get the right vibration going, it'll transmit those vibrations. I can't say just the same as a wood structure because it is a more massive and denser material, but it can still totally move. So that's how you were getting that much movement, seemingly from a small sub in a gigantic room. And the grandma is stopping that by being a pillow. That's really all it's
Yeah,
doing.
and you were seriously coupled to the floor with
Yeah.
those weird spike things they've got. The thing only weighs about 33 pounds. Its negative 3 point is 27
Mm-hmm.
hertz. And it's only got a 100-watt amp.
I know.
It was definitely shaking something in your house that gave it that sort of feel. Um, I don't know. I wonder if it was actually shaking his couch. Across the hardwood floors. If the hardwood floors were vibrating, it was that those vibrations were transferring into his couch.
But I mean,
Oh,
if he has a basement or a crawl space underneath that hardwood floor, I mean, the whole thing can literally be moving.
yeah,
The whole thing. So
yeah.
yeah. And
So
yes, spikes. My goodness, spikes. Oh, did I cringe when they had that on the HT guys and they mentioned spikes as
well, it's
possibly being a way of decoupling. I'm like, no, it is the opposite of
no, no,
decoupling.
no, no. Yeah,
Spikes
this
are
thing this
like
thing has like
super
kind of fake
coupling.
spikes. They're like cones at the bottom.
Oh, okay.
So
But
yeah, there's
still,
not actual
it's
spikes.
still it's taking all of the force because the force is like the weight of the subwoofer, right? Is taking all of that force, that downward acting force that's just there because of gravity and the mass of the subwoofer, and it is spreading that force across a very, very tiny surface area. So we're all familiar with the term pounds per square inch. Same number of pounds, many, many fewer square inches. So you have a very high level of pounds per square inch when you focus all of the downward force of that subwoofer to four tiny little feet, whether they're cone or spikes or whatever. So that's why spikes are not a good way to avoid
Yeah.
rattling and shaking.
So let's see here. He technically the volume of the sub should not have changed. You should recalibrate
Yes, yeah.
for
You should
sure.
act as though you have a completely new subwoofer. Like, just pretend you just bought a new subwoofer and you're setting it up for the first time. Just pretend you're doing that, except obviously now the Gamma riser is in place and everything should go well. But after doing that, you might not have the, well, you won't have the same experience as what you had before because before your entire room was resonating in sympathy with your sub, and now it is no longer doing that. So you're not going to have the same entire room moving, which it was muddying the sound. So what you should be able to hear is more detail in the bass that you probably weren't hearing before because it was being covered up by your entire room moving in sympathy, but you're not going to get the same tactile impact as you were getting before because you have removed physical shaking from the equation. So you might not like the experience at first, but I would urge you to get used to it if you can, because it is far more accurate. And what you should be able to achieve is that sense of, I don't even know that I have a subwoofer. It just seems like my little satellite speakers magically play down to however low that subwoofer can play. That's actually the goal. You're not supposed to notice you have a subwoofer. It's just supposed to seem like all of your speakers magically became full range. So that's if you get closer to that, then you're on the right track.
I mean, this
But
thing's
I'm
not
trying to
deep and
waste
that
it.
low anyway. So your problem
Yeah.
seems to be is that you need a better subwoofer to begin with. I mean, if you really want to feel it, 27 hertz ain't feeling it. 27 hertz is still hearing it.
Hmm.
Okay? I mean, if you turn it up 27 hertz loud enough, sure, you can feel it. But if you want to feel it, you need sub 20.
Well,
Or,
you can feel the 40 hertz stuff. You know
yeah,
that is that whoomp in your chest. Thump thump thump.
not that good whoop. That's not the good whoop.
Yeah,
So,
it's going to sound different. I can promise you that. Especially in a situation like this where you clearly had a lot of movement in the
yeah.
structure of the building,
Does
because
seem,
not
it
all
does seem that way.
transients.
That's a very odd
Yeah.
thing for you to say. Now, he also did not say that all the sounds went away. So there could be still
Well, because
enough bass
anything.
energy in there that it's rattling things. So you need to track down all your rattles and start with that too.
Yeah, I mean, anything that is moving because it's being activated by the airborne pressure,
Yeah,
that's not going to change because you still have the airborne sound waves. But obviously, a lot was the actual like physical shaking of the sub
yeah.
directly in contact
But
with
I
the
think you
floor.
should track
Clearly,
down
was doing a lot.
any sounds at this point.
Hmm.
You should put some sweeps on and just start walking around your room, and anything that's making a sound, get some blue tack and stick it down.
Yep.
You definitely do that. I had to put like padding between my doors and the door frames in this room because
Mm.
they were just going to frickin' town. They still do, but it isn't until like something on
It's
Pacific
a little
Rim really
damped.
hits. Yeah,
Yeah.
then it gets serious. All right, Buddy is trying to sort out what he should use to power his ESS AMT 1B speakers. What are those things again? Are those old
Those are the ones
70s?
with the air motion transformer, the
Yeah,
Heil air motion transformer, and then the
yeah,
big woofer, and then a mid-range driver.
right.
Yep.
They can be biamp, so Buddy is wondering if he should biamp the speakers.
Hmm, no. There's
I
really
just
no need.
I just don't really understand why. There's
This is
so few times where I actually think biamping is anything other than just not using. Like I don't even biamp my speakers. I have extra channels just sitting there doing nothing. Like they're completely ignored. Those
yeah.
extra, but I don't biamp my speakers. Why? Because I don't know extra wires. I don't really want to run.
I mean, the thing is,
Lazy.
this is passive biamping, right? The passive biamping means, okay, so you have two sets of binding posts. You got four binding posts in total. You got two pairs. And normally they have a jumper going. So the red and the red are connected to each other, the black and the black are connected to each other. And you run that to one amplifier, red to red, black to black. And now the internal crossover inside of that speaker that is separating the high frequencies from the mid frequencies from the low frequencies so that the highs are getting sent to the tweeter and the mids are getting sent to the mid-range driver and the lows are getting sent to that big woofer. So all of that is in there, and that's all coming from one source. Now, when you take out those jumpers and you buy Amplify, the two sets, the two pairs of binding posts, are still getting full range signals. Both sides are still getting a full range signal. Nothing has changed on that front. The crossover is still active. It's just that now the one set is driving only the tweeters is saying, all right, I'm filtering out all the bass frequencies, but that's all being done inside the speaker. The whole signal's still getting sent there, and all of those would have been filtered out anyway if you just left the jumpers in. And then the bottom pair of binding posts that's driving the mid-range and the
So
woofer,
he's by wiring, he's not by amping.
well, no, I mean, it is still by amping. You're still technically using two amplifiers to drive one speaker, right? So yes, if you've had two 200-watt amplifiers, you now have 400 watts at your disposal, but that tweeter is drawing hardly anything at all anyway.
Yeah.
It's like insignificant to compare.
Very rarely do I think by amping is something that's necessary. I often suggest people do it simply because they really seem to want to. If you've got extra amps roaming around, fine. I don't care.
I mean, active by amping where your tweeter and your woofer are completely separate and the crossover is outside of the speaker and all the crossover stuff is being done somewhere else, that's a different thing because that's like, self-powered speakers are almost always bi-amped because there's a digital signal processor inside and then they have two separate amplifiers, one only driving the tweeter, one only driving the woofer. That makes a lot of sense, but this, nah, you're not getting anything from bi-amping here.
Yeah. All right, second. So Buddy's wondering if he's also wondering if he should use tube amplifiers or even a tube preamplifier, or he would like a recommendation for a good old receiver, and he means old.
Yes.
Since he's under the impression, what he kind of said was that all this new stuff is junk made in China.
Right.
So what should he do here? Well, first of all, tubes are stupid. Okay. I'm sorry.
Oh, a whole bunch of people just turned off this podcast.
Let me rephrase. Let me rephrase. Tubes are essentially tone controls that you cannot adjust, that change over time. And by time, I mean from the time you turn them on to the time you turn them off, they change. And then over time, as the tube ages, it changes. This is a change in the tube. The tube itself, as it warms up, will act differently. It's a tone control. So it's not going to send a flat signal. The signal that comes in is going to be changed by the tube and probably other things that are in there as well. But the nonlinearity of the tube is going to change the signal as it comes out. Why on God's green earth would you want that? Well, if you're really into this stuff and you like to pair gear and do all these different things and stuff, and you like to be able to talk about it and you think tubes are pretty, fine. Get one. I don't care. You have to deal with the fact that's when people start worrying about like wires and all this other stuff. It's because they're adding passive, uncontrollable, unreally even knowing what's going on there, tone controls. They say, well, I added to my tube amplifier this stupidly designed wire that has this big box on it, which has a super high resistance, but blah blah blah, and that acts as a tone control as well. But when you match that tone control with the other stupid tone controls you got, and you put them all together, you get something that's a little bit flatter, and you're like, see, these things do make a difference. Or better yet, don't do any of that, and just whatever comes in gets sent to your speakers without being adjusted passively by all your gear. So.
Yes. Now, objectively, tubes do produce different distortion than solid-state amplifiers or solid-state preamplifiers. They do. That is an objective fact. If you measure the distortion that's coming out, tubes produce different distortion. Not less, not better, just different. That is true. And if you happen to prefer lots of second-order harmonics and very few third harmonics, then maybe you'll like tubes. But again, it's distorting the signal. And that maybe is more pleasing to you, but you can recreate that with an equalizer if you want to. If that's what you want to do, you can recreate it. it's entirely doable inside of a solid state
Yeah.
amplifier. So,
Now, of course, I do take umbrage with this whole idea that everything. First of all, it's ridiculous to even contemplate that you can say that if it came from a country, it must be junk. That's impossible. It's impossible that there is nothing of quality in China. That everything you go over there and things just crumble, right? They just fall down constantly and
I got
break
a
and blow
secret
up
for
and
you.
explode.
All the SVS subwoofers are manufactured in
I
China.
had to have a secret for you. All the stuff is made in China, and the people who say that they're not are lying or stretching the truth or
That's
fabric.
not. I mean, saying everything new is made in China is patently untrue. I can
Yeah,
give you some examples of AV receivers that are not manufactured in China. The top of the line Denon and Marantz, they're made in Japan. They're manufactured in Japan. They're not made in China. The ATI amplifiers that I recommend all the time, they are made and manufactured in the United States, not in China. So that's
so
just patently untrue to begin with.
yeah, and then the idea that it must be junk because it comes from China is just the reason we build everything in China right now is because it's cheap, and that means that you have to have very tight. The thing that I have heard from manufacturers is that the most important thing about building your stuff in China is making sure that you keep extremely tight tolerances
Right.
because they'll give you what you asked for. But if you say just give me a Navy receiver that has this stuff, they'll give it to you, and if you're not being very specific and doing a lot of QC quality control, tests along the way, you can end up with stuff that catches on fire from time to time. So it's really important that you are on top of it. And of course, these big manufacturers can do that. Um, Dude, if you want something old or something that was made here for in or whatever, I mean, I'm sure that if you go back to whenever this older gear is, they're going to have problems with where it was made back then. All that stuff's made in Taiwan, or all that stuff was made in France or
Or
Italy or
going
something
way
like that.
back, there was a time when made in Japan was like a joke.
Right.
There was a time to go back far enough. So yeah.
Yeah. So, it's there's I don't know what you want us to say specifically. I
Right.
don't have any recommendations for good old receivers. Most of them are, the receiver part of it refers to being able to accept terrestrial signals, AM and FM signals. All right, do you really need that, or do you need an integrated amp? If you want just an integrated amp, you get rid of that, and you've got everything else. All right, but do you not want to have access to any of the top the high definition audio codecs that are out there? Do
Right.
you really not want to have that? And if so, then why are you not worried about sound as much as I would hope that you would be worried about sound for somebody who seems to be interested in it? If that's the case, then there's lots of reasons to want something that's a little bit newer, and there's tons of really good gear that's out there that is either manufactured to very high exacting standards, regardless of the the uh, the nationality of the little fingers that assembled it. Uh, and there's plenty of stuff that you could get that's you could heck, you could build stuff yourself here if you really wanted to. Get yourself an amp that was made here, and a mini DSP which was probably made over there, and a computer which was probably made over there. And you could build your own little crossover majigger thingy and do it yourself. There you go, do it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me from all the communications that we've had with Buddy that I mean he seems to have a mindset, right? And
Hmm.
it's an understandable mindset, and there are lots of people who share his mindset, and he's probably talked to a lot of those people. So it's difficult for us because we have a different mindset, and if you ask our advice, we're going to give the honest advice we have, which is we appreciate all the things you can do with new equipment. Like he was mentioning, he had an older AV receiver. I think it was a Sansui that he had, and he's like remembering how that used to sound and how much he liked that. So there's a nostalgia factor in here. And I get that, and that's perfectly reasonable. If you're saying what I want is to recapture what I had however many years ago, I get that. But
And buy all that
one
stuff again.
yeah, well
Why are
some of
you
it might
asking
not be
us?
available. There's that. But
No,
what
hey,
one
Audio Gone. They're always selling old stuff like that on
exactly, yeah.
Audio Gone.
But one thing to keep in mind is what we keep saying is if you like the distortion that was built into whatever you had some tube amplifier that thought sounded really good at the time, you can recreate all of that stuff using the new technology. You can get the sound you want It's not going to be the exact same method, but you can get to wherever you want. So that's why I think in Buddy's case, what I'm going to go back to is what's important for him is going to be having something not just with like Odyssey room correction built in where you can manipulate the curve yourself, but having one where you can manipulate the curve yourself to make it sound however you want it to sound. So I'm going to recommend that he goes with like an Anthem receiver, because the Anthem receiver, it can handle all the new formats. It's got HDMI, and Anthem Arc you can manipulate manually. You can change the target curve to whatever you want it to be, and it does a darn good job of doing what you tell it to do. So now it's up to you. Now you make it sound however you want it to sound, and I don't have to worry about finding the exact right thing that matches the nostalgia you have, because very often nostalgia is not the way it actually was. You get the thing you used to have and you go, oh, that doesn't actually sound the way I remember it sounding. And that's what you really want. You want what you remember it sounding like. You want the experience, the emotional impact it used to have. I'm promising you, you can get that with U-Gear, and you can tune it to your heart's content with something like the Anthem. So like the MRX.
Especially if what you remember involved tubes or
Right.
this kind of gear that does not stay the same over time.
Yes.
That means that if you actually were able to find the exact receiver, even if you still had the exact receiver, the exact tube amp, the exact speakers, all of the exact stuff, it would not sound the same now as it did then. Just like if you had the same records that had been played over and over again, it would not sound the same now as it did then. They have degraded over time. So better that you get something that's new that won't degrade over time, where you can manipulate the sound so it sounds the way you remember it sounding, and then going on with your life from there. I think Rob's right. That's the way it goes. I know I was kind of hamming it up a little bit there, but I don't want you to take offense. But it really is true that that whole tube nostalgia, which I mean honestly I think tubes are cool as heck. I wish I had a tube amplifier. I really do. I don't know that I would put it in my home theater, but I certainly would use it in sort of 2-channel listening stuff and play with it with different things and see how it sounded, that sort of stuff. But it's not something I would use for critical listening or testing, because I think it would be I don't trust that they're going to give me the exact sound that I want or that I demand, which is as unaltered as possible from the time it gets in there to the time it comes out into the room. But that's just me. So, all right, we're going to end this podcast. We got through a lot of topics. We've got Barney.
Well,
Yes.
do you want to hit Barney's? Because it's just a thing. Oh, no, I guess it is a question.
It
All
is
right,
a question.
Sorry. I was misreading it.
Barney Augustine, is that right?
Augustine?
Augustine, which seems very long, and I'm glad we did not get to you because that's long.
That was a long question.
And Alan and Justin. Wow, we got through a lot.
We did pretty good.
So, if your question is not one of the, if you're not one of those people that I just said, and you did send the question, send it again. That means it just got lost in the shuffle. We got a lot of questions this week. If you want to ask a question, you can email Rob at avrant.com, Tom at avrant.com. Come to the website www.avrant.com, where you can leave us a PayPal donation to become a listener of the week. Facebook.com/avrantpodcast. Twitter is at FirstReflect. And for Rob, and at avrant_Tom for me. I think that's good. Anything else, Rob?
I think that's it for today. I'm very much looking forward to this to find out what the heck DTS is going to say about DTSX and whether or not the X5200 from Denon that I do own, since I do not take my own advice. Do as I say, not as I do.
Why do you have a Denon? What? This is the first time I hear it. When did you get that, traitor?
Well, I've been keeping that secret from you, haven't I? Yes.
A little bit.
Uh-huh.
Oh my God! If I lived wherever you lived, I would be coming over there and kicking your butt right now. I would be.
Yeah. I probably won't even end up keeping it, depending on what DTS says. Because if they say that that X5200 cannot be upgraded to support DTSX, guess
why
what
would you
will be
even have it
leaving
at all? It doesn't even do the Atmos thing that you want it to do.
It does the Atmos.
Well, I mean, it's not going to have HDMI 2.2.
No, it's not going to have HDMI 2.2. It's guaranteed not to have that. I don't care.
God, you're such a junkie. You are an AV junkie. You have a real sickness, Rob. Real sickness. We're going to do an intervention.
I don't drink alcohol. I don't drink coffee. That's where all the money that other people spend on alcohol and coffee, all the money goes into AV gear. That's what happens.
All right. For AV Rant, I'm Tom Andrew.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.
All right, guys. I will start the hangout in just a few minutes here, but I'm not hanging out because I got to go to bed.